Hi, this is Charles McCall, and I'm here in Kampong Thom province. It's about 2 hours or so north of Phnom Penh, and it's the big province. That's what Kampong Thom means, the big province. And so we're here at a church in, it's called Tre Manyap, the village named Tre Manyap. And this is actually the very first church that we planted around probably 1999 or 2000 outside of Phnom Penh. And so this church started as a result of a young girl from our church in Phnom Penh had to return to her home province, which is just right here, just right over there. And she had to return. And there was hardly any Christians in the country at that time, and we sent her off. He said, you need to obey your mom and dad. They've asked you to come home and to help out with the family. And so you need to go back and do that. And so we sent her here, and a couple months later we get a letter from her. And she said, this is Thray Niang, and please pray for me. It's very difficult for me here in this village. There's not very many Christians. There's a lot of demonic activity here. Said I cast a demon out of my dad, who was the village drunk, ran around chopping people with an axe, and I cast a demon out of him, and he gave his life to the Lord. And I cast a demon out of my brother, and he gave his life to the Lord. And so please pray for me. I need a lot of help out here. So that was the beginning of our church planting effort. And so the next day, I sent a team to this province, and we had a senior evangelist, an assistant evangelist, a children's minister, and 3 or 4 other people who just went along for the ride. And back in those days, nobody had a job, and so it was very easy to put together an apostolic team is what it developed into. And so they would come up here every Thursday. We happened to do it on a Thursday, and so I taught them go to the same place, the same time, and the same day. Be consistent. When you arrive, walk around from house to house, get to know people, bring them together to hear the gospel. And there were obviously no Christians in this area, hardly any Christians in this area at all. And so we began sharing, and from there we went from a large group, and our strategy is, I believe it's the same strategy that Jesus did. Jesus ministered to the multitudes, but he looked for leaders and he looked for disciples. And so we just began the process of bringing the gospel for the first time to many of these villagers back in the early 2000s, late 1990s. And they started coming to the Lord, showing interest, and from there we tried to discern who the Lord might be laying his hand on to draw to him, to become possibly a leader in this area. And so we gathered a few more people, and then we started a second group, and that became the discipleship group. The discipleship group became the leadership group. And so it became a small congregation that developed here as a result of that process. However, I did discover that in a nearby village, allegedly there was another church. I didn't see a sign, I didn't see any kind of a building, but allegedly there was another church that was there. And so we wanted to be a legal church, so we began to go through the process of becoming a legal church here in Cambodia for this church right here. But I'll be honest with you, I was a little bit lazy, and I just procrastinated. And so as a result, I waited about a month, and during that month's time, the other church gained legal permission to be a church in that nearby area. And so as a result of that, according to the law, we could not plant a church in the same village. And so we had to move across the bridge over here. It's not very far, it's just maybe a kilometer. But still, the lesson that I learned, was a major leadership lesson for me, is that we have to move at the Kairos moment. When God is moving and the opportunity exists, if we feel like it's of God, we have to move. Because if we procrastinate, we may lose the opportunity. And that's what happened here. And again, everything works out to the good in the end. Romans 8:28, we believe that, and it has worked out good. We do have a good congregation here. They've planted many congregations outside of this one, house churches all over in this area as a result of this church. Another church about 10 kilometers down the road as a result of this church. And so it all worked out good in the end. But the principle is, don't miss the Kairos moment. When God speaks, when the opportunity arises, if you think it's the Lord, you better move. You better make it happen, or you may miss the opportunity. There may or may not be another opportunity.